Last week, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf announced that he and his lieutenant governor are firmly in favor of the legalization of cannabis for adult use. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman is a loud voice for legalization, a voice he earned by listening to over 10,000 people on his 67-county tour of the Commonwealth this year. But how does he feel about medical cannabis? Over 200,000 patients have already signed up, and almost 1,200 physicians are signing recommendations. What happens to this program after adult use becomes legal? I'm your host, Sven Hosford. In this episode of the Dispense Magazine podcast, we'll hear directly from the Lieutenant Governor. Passionate, emphatic, dare I say unfettered? Here's my conversation with Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. What I mainly want to talk about is what happens to our medical program if and when adult use becomes legal.
I heard from all 67 counties people that our medical program is loved universally. If there was one significant issue that kept coming up over and over and over again is the expense. And it's not the expense per se, it's the fact that it's not covered by insurance. And
right.
It's not covered by insurance because of another universal theme that emerged, and that is that it's a Schedule I substance, which of course means that it has no medical value, which of course is ridiculous. And so the medical program, I can't imagine would be in any jeopardy or danger. And in fact, everybody wants to preserve two separate systems, the medical and the recreational aspect, because it has very specific and important uses medically. My wife is a card holder, so this idea that it would necessarily change anything is, I don't think, is something that anyone would need to be concerned of.
Well, I think some of the concern comes from watching what's happened in other states. I haven't been to California recently, but I understand that the medical program is virtually non-existent now with the popularity of the adult use.
I don't traffic in anecdotes. I mean, it's research that it would be conducted if we get to the point where we go recreationally, legally, and we created a superb medical program in Pennsylvania. And if the day comes, I believe the legislature would craft a superior recreational program as well too. So no one wants to see it go away. And these anecdotes that just live on social media, they're just not true, and concerns are premature and just aren't backed up by evidence.
Are you surprised by the popularity of the medical program?
Not at all. Not at all. But it certainly has done a great deal to change the hearts and minds of those individuals that previously would have thought marijuana is a more dangerous substance, or it was just for stoners or whatever. And now Pennsylvania is in a place where those that support marijuana prohibition recreationally is a true minority viewpoint. And it used to be the stereotype was that it's just a bunch of stoners that want this, and it's like, no, that's not it. It's people from across all socioeconomic classes, ethnic groups. Everybody sees this as a net positive. And medical marijuana went from a controversial proposition to a universally loved proposition in, 2 years?
Yeah, less than 2 years. Well, it seems like you've been in office forever, but you actually only took office in January of this year.
Yeah, I've been lieutenant governor since January 15th. So in getting out there and talking to people in all these counties that many people have never even been to or heard of, in some cases, paints a very distinct picture of what people think about in Pennsylvania. And some folks say, oh, we'll put it on a ballot. It's like, well, that's not constitutional in Pennsylvania. So the next best thing is to go out and do what we did.
What do you think of the chances of adult use being passed this year?
Well, I mean, it's going to be, it's always a challenging environment because people people need to remember this is a bipartisan solution. Anything in Pennsylvania has to have bipartisan sign-on.
Right.
And that was medical cannabis, and it would be the same with recreational. And the rhetoric, public rhetoric, often doesn't match up with private thoughts, and it's something that Governor Wolf and I believe in strongly, and it's a constructive conversation to have, because a lot did emerge that is super majority stuff, and that is decriminalization, that is expungement, that is removing this ridiculous classification as a Schedule I substance.
Right. Well, there's only so much you can do at the state level, and it seems like you're doing a great job with those social aspects, with getting pardons for people.
I mean, and pardons is a process that exists, but with some refinement, some tweaking, some other changes, we can aggregate and expedite these applications, and it's expungement through pardons, which isn't, of course, sufficient. The governor and I would also love to see legislation, but in the absence of that, or until that occurs, we have this mechanism, and we plan on utilizing it.
And is there anything possibly built into getting some of these people out of prisons and allowing them to work within the industry?
Yeah, apply for a pardon. That's the answer.
That's the
apply
answer.
for the pardon.
Okay. Well, any other thoughts on protecting the medical program, such as it is?
I think that that's again, concerns are. I mean, people are entitled to their own concerns, but I know there's a great deal of pride on the Republican side for their medical program. It was an example of they stepped outside their comfort zone and they did the right thing. And it's been a tremendous success. And no one wants to dismantle that. I didn't meet anyone really that was like, oh, let's burn it all down and just make it a cannabis free-for-all. No one says that.
Yeah.
No one says that. And this other ridiculous notion that legal implies or means harmless. Well, of course it has an effect. If it didn't have an effect, people would smoke their lawn clippings, you know?
Yeah.
So it belongs in a basket of goods, like alcohol and tobacco, that can be taxed, regulated, and the distribution is controlled. So, and the same holds true with medical. It's like you have aspirin or Tylenol or Advil or whatever, and then you also have prescription stuff. It's not like, oh, well, if this goes recreational, we won't need medical anymore. Like, why? What do you know? How do you know? It's an evolving space. We're figuring it out after an 80-year prohibition of this substance. And guess what? CBD became legal. And did the world spin off its axis? Did the medical program shit the bed? No, none of this happened. So it's just, everyone just needs to understand that the Pennsylvania Republican legislature is a very thoughtful body where there is partisan disagreement. But everyone loves the medical program. No one wants to dismantle the medical program. We do want to make the medical program more efficient. We do want to make the process more affordable for Pennsylvanians and streamline that process. The Schedule I classification. And that's why the governor and I called on our congressional delegation to remove that classification. And I suspect if there is a change in administration, that would naturally occur.
Well, you give great hope for those of us that worked very hard to help get this system in place and support this system. So I applaud your good work.
It's a true credit. It's a true credit. My wife's a card holder. I can tell you, it's provided significant benefit in her life. And I'm telling you, as any Pennsylvania voter that's concerned, the medical program has been widely and well received. Even in the most red counties, even among folks that you wouldn't normally think would be about it. Like the preamble was, I don't support it recreationally, but medical, that's different. That's different. So it's like even those that aren't ready for it recreationally, for whatever reason, love it medically. And Pennsylvania's medical program patients and operators don't have anything that I can see or heard to warrant those fears, as justified as they might be in their mind. I'm not worried about another state's experience, because it's not like this is going to just happen overnight. It would be a process of finding out best practices, what's worked, what hasn't, because I know with good reason our Republican colleagues that help make this a reality take a lot of pride in the medical program, justifiably and understandably so, and no one's clamoring to just get away with it.
Well, Pennsylvania, I think, did a remarkable job. The legislators and the regulators did a remarkable job of doing what has worked well in other states and not repeating the mistakes of other states. I think.
Exactly. Yeah. So if somebody says, "Well, what about California?" It's like, "Yeah, well, we'll learn from California. We'll learn from Colorado. We'll learn from, fill in the blank. Because it's going to be, if it does happen, it'll be a very deliberative process." And let me tell you, recreational cannabis is already happening right now in Pennsylvania on the black market. So why wouldn't we want it grown in Pennsylvania farms, Pennsylvania jobs, and creating Pennsylvania tax revenue, and have it work hand in glove with our medical program?
It seems logical to me. I have
not. Only the extreme fringe has ever called for like a cannabis free for all. No one's actively calling for that.
Right.
This is going to have to be a bill that gets through the legislature, and certainly our friends, the ones that aren't there with us on recreational yet, aren't going to say, you know what, let's just open the floodgates and destroy the nation's best medical cannabis program. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We all want to have a constructive bipartisan conversation on this, and I'm grateful for the governor's leadership, and everyone loves our medical cannabis program.
Well, you're speaking truth right there, my friend. Everyone does love our program. We got quadrupled the number of patients of Illinois, which is a state about the same size, and we did that in less than a year. Well, they're still at 4 or 5 years now and counting.
I've heard it called the gold standard nationwide.
Yep.
And Pennsylvania should take a lot of pride in that. And that's why. And the one big concern that I had was people being able to afford it. It's like, my God, I need this, but and I agree with them. I know how much it costs.
Yep.
Because my wife is a card holder, and that is a Schedule I classification issue. If we made it as affordable as these terrible pain pills, my God, that would change the game overnight. And that's part of what the governor has called for is a change in that classification.
Well, we applaud your work, and I think you've got a very clear vision of how good our program is, and I applaud you for that as well.
The admiration and gratitude is reciprocated, and I just would assure all of our my wife is, as I said, a medical patient.
Sure.
You have a strong advocate and voice with me, in me, and I can just tell you, over 10,000 people came to our events. Over 40,000 people weighed in, and tens of thousands more on social media. Our medical program is universally loved, and I just hope every all your readers and everyone who's in that space understands that.
I think they do. And I'm very glad to hear you say that, sir.
Yeah. Well, please, if you take nothing else from our time together, please communicate that no one is clamoring to change this or dismantle this or anything of the kind. And I think we did a great job in learning from other states, and we certainly would with any recreational program that would emerge.
Excellent to hear. Thank you very much for your time, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman.
Okay, my pleasure. Take care.
That's it for this episode of the Dispense Magazine podcast. You can find out more about Pennsylvania's medical marijuana program at medicalmarijuana.pa.gov. If you live in Pennsylvania or any legal state and you'd like to find out more about certifying physicians and dispensaries near you, visit dispensemagazine.com and search our free online database. You can find copies of our print magazine in every Pennsylvania dispensary, as well as dozens of doctors' offices, holistic centers, and retail locations across the state. To find out where, or to read a copy online, visit dispensemagazine.com. I'm Sven Hosford. Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Dispense Magazine, LLC.